to the 7th Hayley-Roxanna Crafts quick cross stitch video, where I share information, hints and tips on one area of cross stitch in a short video. In this video I'm focusing on how to do a full cross stitch on Aida fabric. So this is how full cross stitches are shown on my charts and pretty much every other chart that I've ever used. Full cross stitches are the most common stitch used in cross stitching. There are two ways of doing full cross stitches, and you may use both methods in your work depending on the design and your personal preferences. So the first method is the English method, where each cross stitch is completed at once. This method is often the easier method to use when completing confetti stitches. So this is where you've got single stitches scattered across the design. So to do the cross stitches in the English method, you come up in the bottom left hole of the square where you want your cross, pull through, and then go down in the top right hole and pull through, then come up in the bottom right hole and pull through, and down into the top left hole and pull through, like so. This stitch can also be done so that the two stitches that make up the cross are the opposite way around. So to do that, you would come up in the bottom right hole of the square where you want the cross, and down into the top left, and then come up in the bottom left hole and go down the top right. And whilst these two crosses do look similar, because they are formed slightly differently, unless you are going for a specific effect, then you really do want to keep to just one or the other throughout your work, just because it gives a better overall effect when you're finished. Stitches can also be worked from the top of the square down to the bottom. Okay, so you can come up through the top right, down into the bottom left, up the top left, and down the bottom right. And that would give you across the same as the first one that I did. Or then, if you want one the same as the second, if you were working top to bottom, you'd come up top left, go down bottom right, up top right, down bottom left. Okay. So sometimes it can be easier to work the stitch from top to bottom depending on where it is in your work. But again, you want to make sure that the top and the bottom of your cross always cross in exactly the same order throughout the whole of your work. Like I said, unless you are going for a specific effect, but generally you want them exactly the same. So the second method you can use is the Danish method, where you do all the bottom halves of the stitch and then all the top halves. So this method is ideal for when you're working in big blocks of colour, as you can just complete one row at a time. Okay, so doing the Danish method, I would come up in the bottom left corner of where I want my first cross to be and go down the top right, and then you want to go through the hole below where you've just gone down. So it would be the bottom left of the next square where you want your next cross, and down the top right, and then just keep repeating that until you have done all of the bottom halves of your cross that you need, and then you just come back across to cross them over, like so. finish your row of crosses off. And these rows can be as long as you want. Again, you can do the bottom and the top stitches the opposite way round, but do try and keep to one direction in your work unless you are trying for a specific effect. You could also do the stitches going in the opposite direction, so sometimes you may want to do that if it saves you carrying your thread a long way to start another row. So for example, if my next row of stitches was coming this way, so if I was going to stitch it the same way as I'd done this, I'd need to start over here somewhere, like that, which would mean that I'd be carrying my thread quite a distance on the back. What I could do is just do them by going top to bottom instead of bottom to top. So I'd put in all the bottom ones, bottom halves of my crosses going that way. Like so, and then do my top halves coming back. And that just saves having long bits of thread travelling across the back of your work. Okay, but the actual crosses are formed exactly the same. If you've got any questions about full cross stitches on Aida fabric, please pop them in the comments. And in next week's quick cross stitch video, I will demonstrate full cross stitches on even weave fabric.